The morning on Horizon's Edge station started like any other morning. Workers woke up in their small rooms. They ate breakfast in the common halls. They walked through the long metal corridors to their jobs. The great station floated silently in the darkness of space, orbiting a small blue planet far from Earth. But this ordinary morning was about to become very different. Ambassador woke up early. He was a species that looked like tall cats walking on two legs. His fur was silver blue and very soft. His eyes were large and golden. They were one of the most important species in the Galactic Concord. They had power. They had influence. An ambassador had brought his 3 young cubs with him on this diplomatic mission. The cubs were small, very small. They were about the size of Earth kittens, with the same silver blue fur as their father. Their names were Taro and Suki. They were curious and playful, always running around and exploring new places. Loved them more than anything in the universe. This morning, he walked into their sleeping room to wake them up for breakfast. The room was empty. Stood very still, he looked at the small beds. He looked under the beds. He looked behind the furniture. He opened every cabinet and every door. His heart began to beat faster and faster. He called out, "Taro, Suki." No answer. He searched the entire diplomatic quarters. He checked every room, every corner, every small space where a curious cub might hide. Nothing. His cubs were gone. Felt fear rise in his chest like cold water. He ran to the communication panel on the wall and pressed the emergency button. "Security," he shouted. "My cubs are missing, my children are gone." Within minutes, the alarm began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Security chief received the emergency call and immediately understood how serious this was. A species of tall reptilian beings with thick scales and powerful bodies. He had been a soldier before becoming security chief, and he knew how to handle a crisis. But this was not a normal crisis. This was a diplomatic disaster. They were powerful. If anything happened to the ambassador's cubs on a galactic conquered station, there would be serious consequences. Wars had started over less. "Lock down the entire station," ordered. "No one enters or leaves. Search every section. Find those cubs." His security team spread out across the station. They were officers from many different species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had feathers, but they all moved with purpose and urgency. They searched the cargo bays. They searched the maintenance tunnels. They searched the medical wing and the engineering section and the recreation areas. Ambassador waited in the security office. He could not sit still. He paced back and forth, his claws clicking against the metal floor. His long tail moved from side to side with anger and worry. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "How could 3 cubs disappear from a secure diplomatic quarters?" Chief had no answer. The security recordings showed nothing unusual. The cubs had been in their beds at midnight. By morning, they were gone. There was no sign of forced entry, no sign of a struggle. It was as if they had simply vanished. Station commander arrived at the security office. She was a human woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and a calm face. She had commanded this station for 10 years and had never faced a situation like this. "Ambassador," she said carefully, "I assure you that we are doing everything possible to find your children." "Everything possible is not enough," shouted. "If any harm comes to them, your Concord will answer for it. Do you understand me? Your entire alliance will answer for it." Commander did not flinch. She understood his fear and his anger. If her own children were missing, she would feel the same way. "We will find them," she said quietly. "I promise you." But hours passed and the cubs were not found. The security teams searched and searched. They looked in places where no one had looked in years. They opened old storage rooms. They crawled through air ducts. They checked every ship docked at the station. Nothing. The news spread through the station. Workers whispered to each other in worried voices. Some thought it was a kidnapping. Some thought it was an accident. Some feared it was the beginning of something much worse. In the administrative wing of the station, far from the diplomatic quarters, a young woman named sat at her desk. She worked in the data processing department, a boring job that involved sorting through shipping records and inventory lists. She was 24 years old, with long black hair that she kept tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore an oversized gray hoodie that was too big for her small body, but she liked it because it was warm and comfortable. Did not know about the emergency. She had put her headphones on when she arrived at work, and she was listening to soft music while she worked. The alarm lights were flashing in the corridor outside, but she could not see them from her desk. The announcement had played over the speakers, but she had not heard it. She was focused on her work, typing quietly on her computer, but she was also distracted by something else. There was something warm and heavy in the front pocket of her hoodie. She remembered how it had happened. She had been walking to work that morning, taking her usual route through the quiet corridors, and then she had seen them. 3 small creatures with silver-blue fur, no bigger than kittens. They had been sitting in the middle of the corridor, looking at her with large, curious eyes. "Hello," had said, stopping to look at them. "Are you lost?" One of the creatures had walked toward her. It had sniffed her shoes. Then, before she could react, it had climbed up her leg. "Hey," had said, surprised, "what are you doing?" But the little creature had kept climbing. It had crawled up her body and disappeared into the front pocket of her hoodie. A moment later, the other 2 had followed. Had stood there in shock, not knowing what to do. She had tried to pull them out, but they had made small crying sounds and had held on tightly to the fabric. So she had let them stay. Now, sitting at her desk, she could feel them sleeping inside her hoodie pocket. They were warm and soft, and they made quiet purring sounds. Sometimes one of them moved, and she could feel tiny paws pushing against her stomach. She knew she should report this. She knew someone was probably looking for them, but they were sleeping so peacefully, and she did not want to disturb them. "I will take them back during lunch," she told herself. "They are safe with me. It will be fine." She had no idea how wrong she was. 4 hours had passed since the alarm first sounded. 4 hours of searching. 4 hours of growing fear and frustration. Chief stood in the center of the security command room, surrounded by screens and reports and officers waiting for orders. His scaled face was tight with stress. His yellow eyes moved from screen to screen, watching his teams search the station. They had found nothing. "This is impossible," he growled. 3 small creatures cannot simply disappear. They must be somewhere. Lieutenant stood beside him. She was in species with large compound eyes and thin arms. She was one of his best officers, known for her careful thinking and attention to detail. "The cubs are very small," she said. "They could fit into spaces we have not considered: air vents, maintenance shafts, storage containers." "We have checked all of those places," said. "Perhaps we should check again, and perhaps we should expand our search to areas we have not yet covered." Nodded slowly. She was right. They had focused on the secure areas of the station, the places where someone might take the cubs if this was a kidnapping. But what if it was not a kidnapping? What if the cubs had simply wandered off on their own? "Expand the search to civilian areas," he ordered. "Check every office, every workshop, every personal quarters. Talk to every worker. Someone must have seen something." The security team spread out once again. They moved through the station like a wave, questioning workers and searching rooms. Most people cooperated. They understood the seriousness of the situation. They wanted to help. Ambassador had stopped packing. He now sat in a chair in the corner of the security office, his body very still. His golden eyes stared at nothing. He looked like a statue made of silver-blue fur. Commander sat across from him. She had tried to offer him food and water, but he had refused everything. He had not eaten or drunk anything since discovering his cubs were missing. "Ambassador," she said gently, "you must take care of yourself. We will find your children." Did not respond. His mind was far away, thinking about his cubs. They were so young, so small, so helpless. What if they were hurt? What if they were scared? What if they were calling for him and he could not hear them? He had not wanted to bring them on this mission. His wife had told him it was a bad idea. But the diplomatic meetings were expected to last 3 months, and he could not bear to be away from his children for so long. So he had brought them with him, promising to keep them safe. And now they were gone. In the administrative wing, the security team finally arrived. Officer led the group. He was a large with dark green scales and a serious face. He did not like this assignment. Searching offices and questioning clerks felt like a waste of time. He believed the cubs had been taken by someone with a purpose, not lost in some random corner of the station. But orders were orders. The data processing department was a large open room filled with desks and computers. About 20 workers sat at their stations, most of them looking nervous because of the security presence. When and his team entered, everyone stopped working and looked up. Everyone except one person. At a desk near the back of the room, a young human woman continued to work. She wore headphones and was staring at her computer screen. She did not seem to notice the security officers at all. Frowned, he did not like being ignored. He walked toward her desk, his heavy footsteps making the floor vibrate slightly. Other workers moved out of his way. A young human man sitting at the desk next to the woman tried to get her attention, waving his hand in her direction, but she did not respond. Stopped in front of her desk and waited. The woman still did not look up. She was typing something, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. One of her hands occasionally moved down to touch the front of her oversized gray hoodie, as if adjusting something. Reached out and tapped the desk hard with his claws. The woman finally looked up. She pulled one of her headphones out of her ear, and her eyes went wide when she saw the large reptilian officer standing in front of her. "Oh," she said, "I am sorry I did not see you there. Can I help you?" "We are conducting a search of the station," said impatiently. "3 cubs are missing. They are small with silver-blue fur. Have you seen them?" The woman's face changed, saw something flicker in her eyes. Was it surprise, fear, guilt? "Cubs," she repeated, "small ones." "Yes, they disappeared from the diplomatic quarters this morning. We are searching everywhere." The woman opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, something moved beneath the fabric of her hoodie. His eyes went down to her midsection. The fabric was moving. Something was pushing against it from the inside, and then a small paw appeared at the edge of the hoodie's front pocket. A small, silver-blue paw. Froze. The paw disappeared back into the pocket. A tiny yawn came from somewhere inside the hoodie, and then another small sound, like a cat purring. What said slowly, "is in your clothing." The woman's face turned red. She looked down at her hoodie, then back up at the security officer. Her expression was a mixture of embarrassment and fear. "I can explain," she said quickly. "It is not what you think. I did not take them. They followed me. They just climbed in and fell asleep, and I did not know what to do, and I was going to bring them back. I really was. I just did not want to wake them because they looked so comfortable and—" "Do not move," said. He raised his communicator to his mouth. "Chief, I have found the cubs. They are in the administrative wing, data processing department." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Are they alive? Are they hurt?" Looked at the woman, at her hoodie, at the small movements and soft sounds coming from inside it. "They appear to be sleeping," he said. Another pause. "Sleeping?" "Yes, Chief, sleeping, in a human's clothing." The woman raised her hands helplessly. "I told you, they just climbed in. I did not know they were important. I thought someone would come looking for them eventually." Stared at her. In all his years of security work, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. A diplomatic crisis caused by missing cubs, A station-wide lockdown, hundreds of officers searching for hours. And the cubs had been napping in a human's hoodie the entire time. He did not know whether to be angry or relieved. "Stay where you are," he said. "Do not move. The ambassador is on his way." The woman nodded nervously. She looked down at her hoodie again, at the sleeping cubs inside. One of them made a small noise and shifted position, pressing closer to her warm body. "It is okay," she whispered to them. "Everything will be okay." She hoped that was true. The data processing department had never seen so many important people in one place. Workers stood at the edges of the room, pressed against the walls, watching with wide eyes as security officers, diplomats, and station commanders crowded around one small desk. Sat in her chair, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her heart was beating so fast that she could feel it in her throat. Around her stood Chief and his security team, station commander and her assistants, and several diplomats she did not recognize. And then Ambassador entered the room. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. He walked slowly, his golden eyes fixed on. His face showed no emotion, but his tail was very still, which somehow knew was not a good sign. He stopped in front of her desk and looked down at her. Had never felt so small in her entire life. "You," the ambassador said. His voice was quiet, but there was something dangerous underneath it. "You have my children." His voice came out as a whisper. "I did not mean to take them. They followed me. They climbed into my hoodie and fell asleep. I was going to bring them back, I promise." His eyes moved down to her midsection. The hoodie was still now. The cubs inside had stopped moving, as if they could sense the tension in the room. "Show me," he said. His hands were shaking as she reached for the zipper of her hoodie's front pocket. She pulled it down slowly, carefully. Inside, 3 small cubs were curled together in a tight ball. Their silver-blue fur rose and fell with each peaceful breath. One of them had its tiny paw wrapped around another's tail. Their eyes were closed, and soft purring sounds came from their small bodies. They were completely, absolutely asleep. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the sleeping cubs. After hours of searching, after all the fear and panic and worry, here they were, safe, unharmed, sleeping in a human's pocket like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ambassador made a sound that was halfway between a gasp and a sob. He reached out with trembling hands and gently touched one of his cubs. The small creature stirred slightly but did not wake up. "They are sleeping," whispered. "They are actually sleeping." Commander stepped forward. "Ambassador, are the cubs all right? Should we call the medical team?" Shook his head slowly. No, they are fine. They are more than fine. They are." He paused, struggling to find the words. "My children have not slept like this in weeks." He looked up and his expression had changed. The anger was gone. In its place was something that looked like confusion and wonder. "What did you do to them?" he asked. "I did not do anything," said. Her voice was still shaking. "I just let them sleep. They seemed comfortable, so I did not want to wake them." "But how? My cubs have been restless since we left our home world. They wake up crying every night. They refuse to nap during the day. The stress of travel, the strange environments, the different sounds and smells, it has been very hard on them." He looked back at the sleeping cubs. "And now they sleep like this, deep and peaceful in a stranger's clothing." Chief stepped forward. His earlier frustration had faded, replaced by professional curiosity. "I think we should move this discussion to a more private location, the ambassador's quarters, perhaps." Commander nodded. "Agreed, miss." Said quickly, "My name is." "Miss, please come with us, and please, try not to wake the cubs." Stood up carefully. The weight of the sleeping cubs shifted in her hoodie pocket, but they did not wake. She walked slowly, taking small steps, keeping her movements smooth and gentle. Her watched her leave with his mouth hanging open. He had worked beside for 2 years. She was quiet and shy and never caused any trouble. And now she was walking away surrounded by ambassadors and security chiefs, with alien bobbies sleeping in her pocket. He was going to have so many questions for her later. The group moved through the station's corridors to the diplomatic wing. People stopped and stared as they passed. The news had already spread that the cubs had been found, but no one knew the details yet. The sight of the small human woman walking carefully with a hoodie full of sleeping aliens was strange and confusing. When they reached the ambassador's quarters, the group settled into the large meeting room, was given a comfortable chair. She sat down carefully, and the cubs shifted position again, pressing closer to her warm body. "Now," Commander said, "let us understand exactly what happened. Miss, please tell us everything from the beginning." Took a deep breath. "I was walking to work this morning. I take the same path every day. It goes through a quiet corridor near the maintenance section. Today I saw the 3 cubs sitting in the middle of the hallway. They were alone. I thought they were lost." "They got out of their room somehow," said quietly. "They have done this before. They are curious and clever, but they have never gone far. They are afraid of the station's strange sounds and smells." "They did not seem afraid of me," said. "I stopped to look at them and one of them walked toward me. It sniffed my shoes, and then it started climbing up my leg." She looked down at her hoodie pocket. "I tried to stop it, but it was very fast. It climbed all the way up and went into my pocket, and then the other 2 followed. I tried to pull them out, but they made crying sounds and held on tight, so I let them stay." "And you did not think to report this?" Chief asked. There was no anger in his voice, just genuine confusion. His face turned red again. "I know I should have, but they fell asleep almost immediately. They were so peaceful, I thought. If I brought them to security, there would be loud noises and bright lights and lots of strangers. It would scare them. So I decided to wait until my lunch break and try to find where they belonged." "You were protecting them," Commander said. "I was trying to. I did not want them to be frightened." There was a long silence. Ambassador stared at the human woman, this small, ordinary creature who had accidentally caused a diplomatic crisis. But she had not done it with bad intentions. She had done it because she was trying to keep his children calm and comfortable. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why did you care about their comfort? You did not know who they were. You did not know who I am." Looked at him with genuine surprise. "Because they are bobbies. They are small and helpless, and they were alone in a strange place. What else would I do?" Had no answer to that question. In his experience, most species looked out for their own kind first. Kindness to strangers was rare. Kindness to alien strangers was almost unheard of. But this human had seen 3 lost cubs and had immediately wanted to protect them. Not because she had to, not because she would benefit from it, simply because they were small and needed help. He looked at his cubs, still sleeping peacefully in the human's hoodie. They had not slept this well since leaving their home world. Something about this woman made them feel safe. And for the first time since discovering they were missing, Ambassador felt himself begin to relax. Ambassador reached into his hoodie pocket with gentle hands. He touched the soft fur of his eldest cub and carefully lifted her out. The small creature stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She looked at her father with sleepy recognition and made a soft chirping sound. Held her against his chest, relief flooding through his body. His child was safe. She was here in his arms, warm and alive. But then something unexpected happened. Began to squirm. She twisted in her father's arms, her small body struggling against his grip. She was reaching backward toward the human woman, toward the hoodie. Her tiny paws stretched out desperately, and she made a sound that had never heard before. It was not fear. It was not pain. It was want. "What is happening?" asked confusion in his voice. The other 2 cubs had woken up now. Taro and Suki were also reaching toward, their small bodies pressed against the fabric of her hoodie pocket, refusing to be removed. They made the same wanting sounds as their sister. Looked at the ambassador helplessly. I do not know what is happening. They seem to want to stay with me." Commander stepped forward, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Ambassador, I believe I can explain what we are seeing here." Everyone in the room turned to look at her. "Humans are different from most species in the galaxy," said. "We have certain qualities that other species find unusual. For one thing, our body temperature runs higher than most other beings. We are warm." She gestured too. Miss' body heat would feel very comfortable to the cubs. Young are used to sleeping in warm nests with their mothers. Her hoodie pocket would have felt similar to that. Looked at the human woman. He had touched her desk earlier, and he remembered noticing how warm her hands were. He had thought it was because of some device, but now he realized it was simply her natural temperature. "There is more," Commander continued. "Human voices tend to fall in frequencies that many species find calming. Our heartbeats are slow and steady, and we produce certain chemicals through our skin that can have a soothing effect on others." "You are saying that humans are naturally comforting?" Chief asked, doubt in his voice. "Yes, many species have noticed this effect. We are not sure exactly why it happens. Perhaps it is because humans evolved as social creatures who needed to care for their young for many years. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Being near a human can make many species feel calm and safe." Was still struggling in his arms, still reaching for. The ambassador looked at his daughter's desperate movements, then back at the human woman. "May I try something?" asked quietly. Hesitated, then nodded. Stood up slowly and walked over to him. She reached out her hand, palm up, and held it near. The small cub immediately stopped struggling. She leaned towards hand and sniffed it. Then she pressed her small face against its warm palm and made a purring sound. "She likes you," said. There was wonder in his voice. "I like her too," said, smiling. "She is very cute." Made a decision. Carefully he placed back in his arms. The cub immediately relaxed, curling against the human woman's chest with a contented sigh. Taro and Suki, still in the hoodie pocket, chirped happily. For a long moment, no one spoke. They all watched as this small human woman held the ambassador's child, her warm body and gentle presence calming the restless cub in a way nothing else had been able to. "I must admit something," said finally. "When my species first joined the Galactic Concord and met humanity, we did not think much of you. You are not strong like the. You are not wise like the. You have no natural weapons, no special abilities. We thought you were ordinary." Looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "But I am beginning to understand that we were wrong," said. "Your species has something that is rare in this galaxy. You care about others. Not just your own kind, but all kinds. You see a lost creature and your first instinct is to help it. You see someone in pain and you want to comfort them." He reached out and gently touched his daughter's fur. She was almost asleep again, held safely in the human's arms. "My children have been struggling for weeks. The stress of travel, the strange environments, the fear of being away from home. Nothing has helped. Not medicine. Not familiar objects from our world. Not even my own presence." He looked at with something close to respect. "But you helped them. Without meaning to, without even knowing who they were, you helped them. You gave them peace." Did not know what to say. She had not done anything special. She had just been kind. That was all. "Ambassador," Commander said, "perhaps we could arrange for Miss to spend some time with the cubs during their stay on the station. It might help them adjust to their new environment." Considered this. That would be acceptable if Miss is willing. Looked down at the three cubs, was sleeping against her chest. Taro and Suki were curled up in her hoodie pocket, making soft purring sounds. They were so small and helpless and trusting. "I would like that," she said. "I would like that very much." For the first time since the crisis began, Ambassador smiled. The next few days were strange and wonderful for her. She was given permission to take time away from her data processing job to help with the cubs. Every morning, She would go to the diplomatic quarters and spend several hours with them. She would hold them and play with them and let them sleep in her hoodie pocket. The cubs adored her. They followed her everywhere. When she sat down, they climbed into her lap. When she walked, they walked beside her, tiny paws pattering on the metal floor. When she spoke, they listened to her voice with their ears perked up, as if she was saying the most interesting things in the world. And they slept. For the first time in weeks, they slept deeply and peacefully, curled up against its warm body. Ambassador watched all of this with amazement. He had never seen his children so happy. He had never seen them so calm. This ordinary human woman had done something that he, their own father, had not been able to do. She had made them feel at home. Word began to spread through the station about the human woman and the cubs. Other diplomats heard the story and became curious. They wanted to know more about this strange human quality, this ability to comfort and soothe. Some of them had young of their own who were also struggling with the stress of diplomatic travel. And slowly, an idea began to form in Commander's mind. 1 month later, his life had changed completely. She no longer worked in the data processing department. She no longer spent her days sorting through shipping records and inventory lists. Instead, she had a new job, a new title, and a new purpose. She was now the cultural comfort liaison of Horizon's Edge Station. It was a position that had never existed before. Commander had created it specifically after the story of the cubs spread through the diplomatic community. Other species had begun asking questions. They wanted to know about this strange human ability to calm and comfort. They wanted to know if their own young could benefit from it. So had made it official, was now responsible for helping young beings of all species adjust to life on the station. She had her own office in the diplomatic wing, a comfortable room with soft lighting and warm temperatures. It was called the Comfort Lounge, and it had quickly become the most popular place in the diplomatic quarters. Today, like every other day, the room was full. Sat in a large cushioned chair in the center of the room. In her lap, the 3 cubs were curled up together, fast asleep. Taro and Suki had become her constant companions. They followed her everywhere she went and refused to sleep anywhere except in her presence. But they were not the only ones. Under her left arm, 2 chicks were nestled against her side. They were a bird-like species with soft golden feathers and large curious eyes. Their chicks were small and delicate, and they had been very frightened when they first arrived on the station. Now they pressed against its warmth, making soft cooing sounds. Under her right arm, a young was resting. His name was, and he was the son of Chief. Young were supposed to be tough and independent, but was different. He was shy and sensitive, and he had trouble sleeping in the cold metal corridors of the station. His father had been embarrassed to ask for help, but eventually he had brought to the comfort lounge. Now the small reptilian child came every day, seeking the human's warmth. And somewhere in the folds of his blanket, she was fairly certain there was a larva. They were an insect species, and their young looked like small, glowing caterpillars. This one had crawled into her blanket 3 days ago and had not left since. Its parents visited every evening to check on it, but they seemed happy to let it stay with during the day. There were others too. A pair of pups sleeping under her chair, a young wrapped around her ankle, 3 baby floating in a heated water container beside her, close enough to feel her presence. The comfort lounge had become a nursery for the station's youngest visitors. Ambassador came to visit often. He would stand in the doorway and watch his cubs sleeping peacefully, a gentle smile on his face. The diplomatic meetings were going well. The stress had eased, and his children were happier than they had ever been. Today, he entered the room quietly, careful not to wake any of the sleeping young. He walked over to his chair and sat down in a seat beside her. "How are they today?" he asked, looking at his cubs. "Perfect," said, stroking soft fur. "They took a long walk around the garden this morning, and now they are very tired." Watched her gentle movements. After a month, he still found it amazing. This human woman, so small and ordinary-looking, had become the most important person in his children's lives. They loved her, they trusted her, they felt safe with her. "I have been thinking," he said, "about what I told you when we first met, about how my species did not think much of humanity." Looked at him, waiting. "I was wrong," continued. "We all were wrong. We looked at humanity and saw no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. We saw creatures who were soft and weak and helpless. We did not understand how you had survived, how you had built ships and reached the stars." He paused, watching a chick shift in its sleep. "Now I understand. You survived because you care. You help each other. You protect each other. And you do not limit that caring to your own kind. You see any creature in need and you want to help it. That is your strength. That is your weapon." Smiled. "I do not think of it as a weapon. I think of it as just being kind." "And that is exactly why it works," said. "You do not do it for advantage or profit. You do it because it is who you are. That is why my children trust you. That is why all these young ones trust you. They can sense that your kindness is real." He stood up and looked around the room at all the sleeping young. Cubs and chicks and pups and larvae, all resting peacefully in the presence of one small human woman. "I will tell my people about this when I return home," he said. "I will tell them that we underestimated humanity. I will tell them that humans are not weak or ordinary. They are something much more important. They are kind." Felt tears forming in her eyes. She had never thought of herself as special. She had never thought she was doing anything remarkable. She was just taking care of Bobbies. It was the most natural thing in the world. But here, in this room, surrounded by the young of a dozen different species, she realized that maybe kindness was remarkable. Maybe caring for others, even strangers, even creatures from other worlds, was something special after all. One of the cubs stirred in her lap. Suki opened her golden eyes and looked up at. Then she made a soft purring sound and pressed her face against the stomach, going back to sleep. Stroked her soft fur and smiled. This was her life now, sitting in a warm room, surrounded by sleeping Bobbies from across the galaxy. It was strange and wonderful and nothing like she had ever imagined. But she would not trade it for anything. Outside the comfort lounge, the station continued its normal operations. Ships came and went. Diplomats held meetings. Workers did their jobs. The great wheel of galactic civilization turned on and on. But in this small room, something important was happening. Bridges were being built. Trust was being formed. Young beings from different worlds were learning that they could feel safe in each other's presence. And at the center of it all was one ordinary human woman with a warm heart and an oversized hoodie. Commander watched from the doorway, a satisfied smile on her face. She had made many decisions during her time as station commander. Some had been good, some had been bad. But creating the cultural comfort liaison position was one of the best decisions she had ever made. Because in the end, the galaxy did not need more warriors or politicians or merchants. What it needed was more kindness, more compassion, more people who would stop to help a lost creature, even if they did not know who it belonged to. And humanity, it turned out, had plenty of that to share. The cubs slept on, warm and peaceful, dreaming of soft voices and gentle hands. They did not know that they were part of something larger. They did not know that their accidental adventure had changed the way the galaxy looked at humanity. They only knew that they were safe, that they were loved, that they were home. And for 3 small cubs who had traveled so far from everything they knew, that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.